Good evening. I'd like to call this Thursday, April 27th, meeting of the Tacoma School District Board of Directors to order. Please rise and join me for the flag salute. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would the General Counsel please call the roll?
Vice President Cobb.
Here.
Director Winskill. Director Hines.
Here.
Director Vial.
Here.
And the record reflects that President Ushka is absent. Is she excused?
She's excused.
Thank you.
Item 4, adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion to amend the agenda or to approve it as presented?
I'll adopt the agenda, move to adopt the agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or any questions? All in favor of adopting the agenda, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the motion passes.
Madam Vice President,
Yes.
just like to note that my daughter has a school performance this evening. I'll be leaving about 7 o'clock.
That sounds great. Moving on to number 5, recognition of staff, students, and community. 5.1, recognition of 3 Red Hawk Fire and Security representatives in Whitman Elementary School Chief Custodian.
Thank you, Vice President Cobb and members of the board. Heaven forbid, we can all think of plenty of potentially dangerous safety scenarios that could play out in our schools. For example, what if a raging fire broke out when a school's fire alarm system was shut down for maintenance? Fact is, that happened at Whitman Elementary School, and in a case like that, you need a hero or 2 or 3 to step forward. Here to tell you more about this story and introduce our honorees, please welcome the district's Manager of Custodial Operations, Paul Harris. Paul.
Thank you, Dan. So back on March 7th, an unusual fire broke out in the boys' restroom at Whitman. And by coincidence, these 3 gentlemen, Josh Cunningham, Rick Fees, and Dave Hovader, happened to be there doing a project at the time. And the men heard some noises and whatnot, and they were able to grab the nearest fire extinguishers and make their way to the boys' bathroom. When they opened the boys' bathroom door, actually it was open, there was so much thick black smoke that one of the gentlemen actually had to take off his t-shirt and wrap it around his head to be able to make it into the restroom to be able to find the fire and extinguish it. By that time, the fire had gotten so large that they weren't able to get it completely out, and they had to retreat. And in the meantime, our chief custodian, Philip Stanson, happened to show them the way to another fire extinguisher, and together the 4 of them went back and ended up extinguishing most of it, and then our fire suppression system came on. So I would like to thank, again, Josh Cunningham, Rick Fees, and Dave Hovader, as well as Chief Custodian Philip Stanson for their heroic efforts at Whitman. Actually, I'd like to let Dave Hovader say a few words from Red Hawk.
So just a slight correction. I manage I shouldn't say young, but the gentleman behind me. So I wasn't there, but Rick Feast and Josh Cunningham were on site. And what we do for a living is life safety. We test the systems and make sure they're operating properly. So rarely do we run into a case that everything is shut down and we're testing that a fire alarm comes in. But we do teach the guys to look for something abnormal that the area you're not in. And that's exactly what happened. And I'm very proud of the fact that a lot of times in situations like that, people just freak out, don't know what to do. And I'm very proud of the fact of Josh and Rick and the others that helped, that they kept a level head and they knew what to do. And I can't tell you, so with everything disabled, what would happen with that fire alarm, if a smoke detector tripped or the sprinkler went off, school will not hear anything. So they had the presence of mind to say, oh, everything shut down, let's go reactivate the horns, make it go off. Furthermore, has the presence, I think Rick Feast had the presence of mind to say, call the fire department because everything's turned off. So it went really well. They're very humble gentlemen, so they'll say they didn't do much. They contained it enough for the fire department to come do the rest. So we're just very thankful nobody got hurt in this situation. So, thank you.
What was the cause of the fire?
Thank you for all you do.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Didn't anticipate that day. I know.
I just want to say thank you again for being there, having the presence of mind, and just for really taking care of all of our kids. So we appreciate you. Okay, item 5.2, recognition of Gold Star Community Partner Award to Titus Will Ford and Service Manager Shannon Sam.
Good evening, School Board. Amanda Scott Thomas from the Community Partnership Office, and we are going to recognize our April Gold Star awardee. We did have them recognized and awarded the April Gold Star last board meeting, and because of a mix-up in communication, the recipient wasn't here, and we wanted to do it officially and formally, and we invited him here tonight. So I'm going to provide you a little context for the already awarded awardee. Titus Will Ford became a community partner in 2013 to 2014 as the Career and Technical Education's Department Outreach Program. The intention of the outreach was to build community partners willing to create opportunities for students and teachers. Service Manager Shannon Sam is the point of contact at Titus Will, and he is a champion for CTE and Tacoma Public School students who are interested in the automotive industry. Shannon became a part of the CTE Advisory Board with first-year automotive instructor Isaac Juma at the Mount Tahoma High School, and decided to take on 2 additional paid interns in 2015, focusing on students in the automotive program at Mount T. One of the students from Mount Tahoma was hired as a full-time employee after graduation. Ford offers paid training to become journeyman mechanics and additional training to become full-time mechanics. These are livable wage jobs with full benefits, and they become very high-paying and rewarding jobs and careers. The Oakland students, we have Oakland students that are on track with Titus Will to become mechanics right now. The partnership and the vision for the partnership has expanded to other organizations in multiple industries, providing many students paid work-based opportunities district-wide. Shannon, Sam, and Titus Will Ford are looking forward to expanding the partnership and providing more students with opportunities to receive paid work experiences and post-secondary opportunities. So we wanted to invite him here tonight and officially thank him for the work that he's doing on behalf of Tacoma Public School students. So, Mr. Sam, will you please come on up?
First of all, I wanted to thank Chris Sieg, who introduced me to the program. As a service manager, we're always looking for young talent, and there's no more better young talent than right in our own neighborhood. I want to thank the Tacoma Public Schools for letting us be a part of this, and I look forward to a lot of years of doing this and raising a lot of kids up through here and give them some great careers.
Amen.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the partnership.
Thanks for giving us this opportunity. Thank you.
Just want to say, I feel like this is a magic seat because when you sit in it, you have a personal connection to the things that are happening. So I just want to say, I had the opportunity to participate in the Next Move program, not Next Move, Yeah, next move last year as a intern supervisor, and I happened to sit in the orientation with staff from Titus Will, and I was surprised by how many of them were there, and I was kind of looking and observing kind of this little buzz of a conversation they were having together about the program and about the interns, but it was just kind of stuck with me and it surprised me. So now hearing how much you have invested in this program and hearing how excited you are about continuing to be a part of it, we're just all, I think, really thankful for your commitment to it and thankful for your investment in our students. So thank you again. So moving on to item 6, members of the public wishing to address the board. So school board members encourage public participation. Your input's appreciated. If you'd like to address the school board, follow these steps. First, complete a citizen's request to speak card, which is located at the back of the auditorium. Submit the card to the school board secretary prior to the start of the meeting. Cards submitted after the public comment period has ended will not be considered at this session. The superintendent will call your name when it's your turn to address the board. Please speak into the microphone and you'll have up to 3 minutes to share your comments.
First speaker is Eugene London, speaking on behalf of the Next Move internship, followed by Christina Walker.
So I'm going to be real honest just to start. I'm super nervous, so I'm going to read this straight off my phone. Whew.
Don't be nervous.
So my name is Eugene Giovanni London. I'm a senior at Mount Tacoma High School. I'm a part of College Bound, the College Success Foundation, Mole, and Trio. I was put in the second phase of the Next Move internship with Downtown on the Go. I work directly with the executive director, Christina Walker, 2 days a week in supporting all of Downtown on the Go's activities. This could range from office work like typing data into an Excel sheet to participating in public events like our walk events and posting posters all around downtown. Having an opportunity like this has shown me the inner workings of nonprofit groups and how they're held together. This internship has given me the opportunity to network with members of Tacoma and learn about what downtown has to offer. In conclusion, I know this internship will benefit myself in the future when I'm job searching. It has influenced my decision to go to the University of Washington, the Tacoma branch, and major in communications and political science.
Awesome.
Thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you.
Good evening, and thanks for having me. I'm Christina Walker, Executive Director at Downtown on the Go, and we are an intern host for the Next Move program. We're a small local nonprofit dedicated to walking, biking, transit, and living downtown. And we run programs that get people walking, biking, and taking transit. We spend quite a bit of time out and about talking to people about transportation options. We spend time working with businesses and talking about everyone's favorite topic, parking. We spend time advocating for transportation options, talking to our elected officials about how important walkability is. And by the way, that's because we're all pedestrians at some point. We spend time on the streets of Tacoma, literally taking photos of people out walking, biking, and taking transit so we can portray that beautiful picture of Tacoma that we know it's all about. The point is, working in our office is all about talking to people and being out and about. We are a small office. We're 4 FTE, 5 people, and we take our work very seriously, but we don't take ourselves very seriously. We have a lot of fun doing what we do. Giovanni joined our team in February, and he just jumped right in. He fit right in. He brings joy to our work. He brings a smile to our face every time he walks in, and yet he's very, very professional. And that's what we're going for, a combination of fun and professional. And so it's been really an honor to work with him over the past semester. He's our 5th intern with the program, and we couldn't be happier with the experience. Not everyone is as good as Giovanni is at being out and about and talking to people, but everyone we've worked with has been fantastic, and a lot of them have stayed in Tacoma and joined a committee with us, or worked with us or come to an event after their internship, and that's been really fun to watch the growth. We've also really enjoyed working with Michael Ryan. She keeps us posted on what's going on, reminds me where to be when I'm supposed to be somewhere or send in a report, and really has helped match interns with us that fit with what we're trying to do and get them good experience too. So I want to thank you for making this program possible in our community. And in addition to being an intern host and part of the downtown community, I'm also a parent and soon to be your newest client, as I have a kindergartner starting in the fall. And I'm just so proud to be part of a city and a school district that supports our youth in this way. Thank you.
Bryce Asperg, speaking regarding this school district partnership program.
Thank you, Superintendent Santorno, Director Cobb, and the rest of the school board. My name is Bryce Asberg, and I'm a senior at Wilson High School. Both of my sisters and I have grown up in Tacoma Public Schools for all 13 years of our education, and of course I'm grateful for the opportunities that TPS has provided us with. And it's from this context and out of a desire to see TPS improve that I frame the following request. It has come to my attention that TPS has made a partnership with an organization that has a questionable ethical record. And it is because of this that I'm asking TPS to remove all formal ties with Planned Parenthood. Allow me to elaborate. First, the history of outright deception. One of the most jarring examples of this is Planned Parenthood's claim to be a leading provider of prenatal care, and yet after an undercover investigation discovered that few Planned Parenthoods actually offer prenatal care, they began scrubbing the word prenatal from their center descriptions online. Moving on, their illegal activity, Planned Parenthood appears to have an awful record when it comes to Medicaid fraud. They're currently being sued in the state of Texas for $5.7 million in Medicaid fraud by a former center director, Abby Johnson. They're also being sued by Sue Thayer, a former manager in the state of Iowa, for $28 million in Medicaid fraud. And finally, Planned Parenthood is being sued for $377 million due to Medicaid fraud here in our own state of Washington. Unless you think that these are fringe cases, they are all being brought by a prestigious law firm which has dozens of Supreme Court victories under its belt and has established itself as a leading legal group across the country. And who could forget the numerous undercover investigations, most famously those carried out by the Center for Medical Progress in June of 2015 that proved Planned Parenthood sells and profits from baby body parts in direct violation of both federal law and human dignity. Planned Parenthood's only defense was to claim that the videos were deceptively edited, and yet even Fusion GPS, the Democrat opposition research group commissioned by Planned Parenthood to forensically analyze these videos, found that the videos had no, quote, widespread evidence of substantive video manipulation. And last but not least, Planned Parenthood profits every year from the killing of children through abortion, as late as the second trimester of pregnancy, when all organs are present and functioning and the baby has a beating heart. And I recognize that this is not a comfortable topic and that what I'm saying is not a message you hear often. Some claims I've just said may even seem explosive, but I'm speaking the truth and I've only presented the tip of the iceberg. Indeed, I'll be emailing extensive documentation of all my claims to your district inboxes by 9 p.m. tonight. And so ask yourselves, is this corrupt organization who you want associated with TPS? I urge you to please act now to distance TPS from the incorrigible Planned Parenthood and prove that Tacoma Public Schools really is committed to human rights. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the last speaker.
Okay, moving on to number 7, superintendent's report. There's no report tonight?
No, I do have a report, but it's kind of I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew. I don't know how many of you got to see Hairspray last week at Stadium and the week before, but it was incredible. And our own Chelsea Olsen was in it, and I have a picture of her from her debut. Those roses must have come from family, right?
Yeah.
And it was an incredible production. And the thing that I appreciated about it more than anything else, 127 cast members of all sizes, heights, colors. You know, it looked like if you wanted in that show, you could be in it. It didn't matter. And I can just remember as a little girl wanting to be in, different plays and not having a place for me, that I couldn't be in it, and what changes have happened. So it was an incredible production, well done, and every student. And let me tell you, this little girl can dance and sing. So it was well produced. So I just want to say congratulations to Chelsea, and congratulations to Stadium. And I was going to ask Chelsea to tell us a couple of things about the performers, because they've won some awards.
Oh yes. Stadium has great actors. Michaela, who is Miss Mornemouth, she's going to Broadway this weekend. Also, the guy who plays Seaweed, Donovan, he won 3rd place to go to Broadway. And Sean, who's Edna, he is in the Addams Family, which are going to regionals this year. And so we have a great cast, and we have amazing actors. So I was so blessed to be a part of it, and I'm so grateful. And I want to give a thank you to Miss Jacobson, because she's the greatest director I've ever worked with. She's the only director I've ever worked with, but I'm pretty sure she's the greatest director. And I love her so much, so thank you.
Thanks, Chelsea.
Yeah.
It was great. Thank you.
Great job, Chelsea.
Thank
Any
you.
other comments?
Yeah, I'd like to make.
Oh, Director Winslow?
Okay, I did go to that play, and I just want to know, Liz Jacobson came out of the community and decided to help with that play about 3 years ago. She has a background in theater, And I think she's even teaching some classes there now, but that just shows how neighborhoods, how we have partnerships with people who have talents in the community that want to come out and help. So it was a great play. Sold out all last weekend, I guess.
Director Hines?
Yeah, I would add, I took the family Saturday night for the final performance, and it was amazing. And our kids, for days afterwards, thank you so much for taking us. Even my 13-year-old, who I wasn't certain how he would react to it. And I learned, I was at the YWCA luncheon yesterday and learned that there were a couple of foreign exchange students that were a part of the cast as well, which is really cool. And Liz Jacobson, I would just second that. So she did some drama classes at Lowell, and my kids did a couple productions with her, and she is incredibly talented. So I was awfully proud of all of you up on the stage. It was, you wouldn't know, you could have been professionals. I mean, there was it wasn't, oh, these are high school kids. You were so poised, and I think the fact that it was sold out and there were so many people in there, it was pretty impressive that you all were able to deliver the performance that you did. So nice job.
And I must add, half of us were sick during the second weekend, so we were true actors, I must say.
I know when the lead was sick one night, I've heard.
Yeah.
I want to make one other comment. Lincoln is putting on Hairspray also.
Yes, they are.
So I'm not sure exactly when, in the next week or two.
Yeah, next week, I believe.
So,
This
sorry.
weekend and next weekend, I
Yeah,
believe.
so anyone who hasn't been able to see it with Stadium, go see it at Lincoln. And I went to the Lincoln play last year. It was they did Suzical the musical. It was really good. So
Mrs. Eisenhower does a good job.
We're proud of you.
Thank you.
Yes, we are.
So item 8, consent agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the
I move
consent-
adoption.
Second.
Any questions or discussion?
I just had one question.
Sure.
The purchasing department going to New York, it didn't list what the nature of that trip was.
Which one? I'm sorry, what letter? What's the, do you remember?
It's the National Purchasing Conference, and Mr. Demmel presents at that conference every year,
Okay.
or at least this year and last year and the year before that. But National Purchasing Conference, it's the NIGP group, I think is what it's called.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion or comments?
Oh, you know what? I am so sorry. That is not what that is. It's Infor. Yeah, it's Infor. So Infor is our system, our accounting system. Mr. Demmel's going to a different one. I'm so sorry. This is for Cherie to go to the Infor conference. And the conference is actually paid for by our contract with Infor, and it's just the travel for the conference.
Okay. Is that item 8.4D? That's the one I was looking at, because it didn't specify the purpose. It just said the funding source was capital projects funds.
That's correct, yes. So
Okay.
yes. Because it's related to our system upgrade.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? All those in favor of adopting the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed? The motion to adopt the consent agenda passes. Moving on to number 9, policy matters. So 9.1, policy 2110, English learners. It's first reading.
So this policy is in response to the state comes and provides guidance on upgrades to model policies through a CPR, a consolidated program review, and makes recommendations when they see districts that need to be updates. And so what you have tonight is a update based on those compliance requirements from the state. And so you have the first one is the background of the policy, and the policy is pretty extensive, so I can read it all through if you'd like, or you can see that there's a red line version which talks specifically about the changes.
That was helpful. Thank you.
So are there questions or comments? Yep,
I just
Director
have
Hudson.
one question. So all the red line areas, are those additions? Are they changes in the policy? What exactly were they? I know that when we get the new one, it'll have everything there, but.
It's a combination of both. There's some deletions, there's some additions, and so what we do is we take that and we run it through legal, as well as through the folks at OSPI to make sure that we are in compliance.
So there was an A and then it skipped to D, I think. So does that mean that B and C were okay?
No, we probably
Or
just
does
need
that
to
mean they
adjust
were
the
eliminated?
formatting.
Oh, okay.
And will we take
Director
this under consideration at our May 11th meeting or our May 25th meeting?
We,
Right? Sorry,
nope. it's-
May 11th. next
Okay,
week.
thank you.
Sorry.
So anything that you have, if you have any clarifying questions or if you have any comments that you would like us to consider, we would take those prior to that meeting and then bring back those highlighted changes for your consideration.
Thank you.
Director Vial, do you have any questions or
No,
comments?
I'm fine. I read through it, and
Okay.
it looked to me like just upgrades and updates, and to put us, what was it, 16 or 17 years ago, we wrote the policy, and I think it updates with, to me, it looked like with what we're doing now in the district and what the state requirements, so I'm good. Thank you.
Well, I have several comments.
Okay.
So I'll start at the top, so please bear with me. Even the title, I'm just wondering about the English as a second language rather than English as an additional language or anything, recognizing that some of our students speak multiple languages. Then in that introductory paragraph 2, in the second sentence that starts, while English is the basic language, I wonder about the choice of the use of the word basic as opposed to maybe standard, or I'm just wondering about basic. It just stood out to me. And then in the last sentence of that introductory paragraph, where it says, it's still in the same sentence, but the second half of it, after the final comma, it reads, and whose English skills are not sufficiently deficient or absent to impair learning. I just wonder if that sentence can be reframed to reflect kind of the growth mindset that we have adopted.
Which letter?
It's still in the first paragraph.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay.
It's at the end of the sentence. I'll read the whole thing. While English is the basic language of instruction in the Tacoma School District number 10 schools, the district shall provide an instructional program for children whose primary language is not English and whose English skills are sufficiently deficient or absent to impair learning. I just wonder if that sentence can be reframed to say something to the effect of.
Can I ask for a point of order? Normally on first reading, we don't do that. Can you put together a set of amendments for us for the 11th so we can correct this?
I have them all, but I just wanted to
Okay,
mention some
but
of
I-
them.
We do that at first reading.
Isn't that the?
We've done that first
We've
reading
done it, but
before.
I guess I'd like to see them in writing, and if we all agree with them or we don't.
That's totally
before-
fine, but I
okay.
do want, given that this is the first
Right,
reading.
I understand it, but I'm saying, will you share those with the rest of us before the 11th so that we can respond back and see if we agree with them so we can get this done? That's normal procedure, I believe.
I think you should go on. I'd like to hear.
Well, I want to hear them, but I also want to see them in
I'm
what.
fine to follow up
Okay.
in writing with some of these,
Okay.
but I will mention a couple others because I think it's good for us to have some discussion in
Well,
this forum. If-
I agree, but I'm just saying, I would like to see them in writing, within the context of the rest of the policy.
Well, some of this is just making comments on what
Oh.
is here in writing, so I'll just talk through
Okay.
a couple others because it is just comments on what you have in writing.
Okay. But you are asking for some changes, and that's what I'm saying, I would like to see that language before we vote on it on the 11th, okay?
Absolutely, and
Great.
then
That's all I'm asking is
Okay.
to see that, I'm not questioning what you're doing, I'm just saying, I would feel more comfortable personally if I see it in writing and how it fits within the context of the policy and where we are, so.
And just a
Absolutely.
point of order, we can have Tanya circulate the comments to all the
Thank
board
you.
members
That's what I'd
before the
like
May
to see.
11th meeting.
And I won't then suggest specific language, I'm just addressing kind of the spirit of the language.
Got it.
So then, going on to, I have a question about item A, use of home language survey to identify student eligibility for services. I'm wondering, is the home language survey used to identify students for service or to identify students for assessment?
It's for service because there's, correct me if I'm wrong, but the home language survey asks specific questions, the same questions for every student in the district. And I haven't seen it for a long time, but I know if you answer, a certain combination of questions, then that automatically means, and that's part of the OSBI regulation, that we have to serve students that have answered those questions a certain way.
So I guess I'm wondering about participation in programming then or services. So if a student says that their home language is something other than English, is there there's additional assessments that we would give, like
Sure.
to see if the student then needs service?
Right.
So I'm just wondering, is the home language survey the tool that we use to identify them for? Is it more than just English language development service in a program? Is service broader than just participation in the program?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
So I'm wondering if the home language survey, as it's referenced here, the home language survey is used to identify students eligible for services.
Correct.
So do services reflect participation in the program, or services in the sense of now we'll assess that student to see if they need to participate in the program?
So yes, they have to take another assessment to see what their proficiency is,
Yeah.
and then what kind of services they need based on the proficiency. And then actually, parents still have an opportunity to say, we don't want the service. Come on out, Jennifer. The parents have an opportunity to say, yes, we want our student to have the service, or we don't. And so, but it's, but it would identify what kind of services they need. Jennifer?
I love your question. So for the kindergartners, it is the identification as they first enter into us. For all of our students, it is what triggers for an assessment.
Okay.
It's that red flag to say, let's assess and let's see from here.
So I'm wondering if we need it, and maybe we don't, based on your answer. Tell me, does the way that A is written now mean that, or does is there need to be a second bullet that addresses the service piece? Like, what does service mean in this context?
The service, so it'd first be the home language survey is filled out, and then from there an assessment is done to determine if the student needs ELL services, and then from there the services would be what the student receives at the school from EL staff.
The other
So
thing
if
I
you-
think, go ahead.
If you go down to the next sentence, they're connected, and so I apologize in the formatting,
Thank you.
but that it tells you, and then so you see that uses home language. B is assesses and determines using state-approved language proficiency as an assessment tool to determine program placement within 10 days of enrollment and attendance. C, annually assessed by means of state-approved tests, improvement in English language proficiency at each eligible learner. So they sequentially take you down
Okay,
steps.
thank you.
We just
I apologize for the format being off.
It's okay. It's track changes. You can't ever see what you're doing. And then I just have a couple others. The next one is also just a framing question I have. In E, in this last part of the sentence, it refers to culturally different background. And in that frame around culturally different, that implies that there's a referent group. So I'm just wondering if we can reframe that to just reflect the fact that there's English learners and there's no norm.
So what we will do is we will check back with our colleagues at OSPI. And so some of the times the challenge with our language is we are, through our consolidated program review, they identify specific language that we must use. And so we will ask that question
Thank you.
and then be able to provide a response.
Okay. And then my last one is just in the list of legal references. Is there any should there be any reference here? Is there any crossover between rules around equity and civil rights? It's just a question.
With crossover with this specific
With
policy?
this policy.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know that one for
We'll have
sure.
to
I could
check.
verify that with our legal team and with OSPI on that as well.
Okay, so that's like my comments and feedback, but I will give it to you all in writing, just so that you can see what I'm referring to.
Thank you for your thoughtful review for our students.
Any other comments on the policy? Okay, with that, moving on to item 10, quarterly financial update. So presentations on the financial health of the district will be made during regular board meetings on a quarterly basis. Monthly financial statements can be found on the district website. Item 11, curriculum and instruction. There's no curriculum instruction updates tonight. Item 12, business matters. 12.1, approval of amendment, or approval of addendum 01 of contract with Green Gasaway Architects for project and construction management services.
The interim chief operating officer recommends the board of directors approve addendum 01 with Green Gasaway Architects in order to change the designation of clerk of the works to project manager for Wainwright Intermediate School and Wilson High School. The designation change would increase the contract for Wainwright Intermediate School to $131,813, and for Wilson High School, $159,500. The total value of the contract would be increased by $291,313 and shall not exceed $1.886,899.
Move approval.
Second, I have a
Yep.
question.
Director Vial?
Why are we doing this? I guess the bottom line, why are we changing that designation now?
So in some of the, a couple of the jobs we had from the clerk of the work was the, part of the background was at Wilson, we had to remove the project manager and promoted a Green Gasaway agent as a consultant from the clerk of the work to a PM role, therefore no cost increase. At Wainwright, we shifted a project manager on Wainwright to the Browns Point project and promoted Green Gasaway consultant to clerk of the work and to a PM role with no cost increase. And then to finish out, closing out these projects, Green Gasaway needs more dollars since they were promoted on these projects. So our PM services have run lean from consultants, so we were able to use leftover project management dollars to provide PM services to the Bernie project.
So we're basically going back and picking up the costs that were incurred by putting these people as project managers. Is that correct?
That's correct, because the clerk of the work was taking care of just the day-to-day work.
Right, I know
And-
that, and so what happened when they were promoted up to project manager, we did not increase the cost at that time.
That is correct.
So we're now being billed basically by Green
Green
Gasaway for those costs. Am I correct?
That is correct.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank
Okay.
you.
Director Winslow, or Director Hines?
Could you give us an example of the type of work that the clerk of the work would do versus the project manager?
Right, so the clerk of the work is the person who's just on site every day, making sure the work's getting done, making contact with the contractor, more of just a construction management, where the project management would take care of the budget, would take care of some of the other work that goes along with that, closing out the counts on the construction. So it's just a step up, taking care of those, more of the financial portion of it.
And you said this is covered by cost savings?
So we were able to use some of the dollars that we saved and we put it on the Bernie project.
So this is a plus, minus, or cost neutral move? Because I'm assuming it's all coming out of the bond.
That's correct.
So plus, minus, or cost neutral?
More cost neutral, but I have to find out exactly for you.
If I may.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add, what we've done is these costs are included already in the project status reports that you've been receiving monthly. And so tomorrow, a new project status report will be coming out and you'll be able to see where we are relative to what the approved budgets are. And so these costs are inclusive of those project status reports.
I still don't think I've heard an answer, though, to my question. Are we spending more money, are we spending less money, or is it a wash?
So this is additional funding to cover the costs of project management versus the clerk of the works, but it's inclusive of the anticipated landing spot where we'll end up with each project.
So to this vendor, it's an increase, but across the board, it's a wash.
To this vendor, it's an increase to cover the project management services, but as far as where we end up relative to the budget, it's a wash.
Okay.
That's what.
Thank you.
So the answer is yes.
Is there any other questions or comments? Hearing none, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt item 12.1. All those in favor? Oh, yeah, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? And the motion is adopted. Item 12.2, approval of interlocal agreement with Ephrata School District.
The chief
The Chief Financial Officer recommends that the Board of Directors authorize the superintendent to sign interlocal agreement with the Ephrata School District.
I'll move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any questions or comments? All those in favor of adopting item 12.2 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion's adopted. Item 12.3, approval of purchase of 9 new school buses.
The Chief Financial Officer recommends that the Board of Directors approve the purchase of 9 new school buses using the State of Washington Department of General Administration contract.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
A comment. I appreciated the follow-up on, that I read on the background on this, where the bus drivers really like the propane buses. I think someone said it had giddy up and go or something was one of their comments.
That's their terminology.
Yeah, their terminology, that, because when we did this, we knew it was an appropriate move in terms of transferring from diesel to a much cleaner fuel and carbon footprints and all that. So anyway, thanks for the background, because sometimes we don't hear from those people that we do. So, you know, moving on, that, you know, eventually, hopefully, we will have all of our buses, propane bus, and get rid of some of that heavy particulate stuff in the air. Thanks.
Thank you.
It's been, any other comments? Director Hunt?
Yeah, just piggyback on that. I appreciate the good work. I know Director Vial and I, for a couple of years, were interested in just getting the analysis done, and we're told that that was going to be cost prohibitive, and there was a variety of reasons why it couldn't happen. And with different perspective, not only did we get really good analysis from the CFO and the COO, we're buying propane buses. It's good for the environment. We learned last time it's saving us money, and now we hear from the people that have to drive them every day that they like the performance of them better. My count was we're at 15 because we did. Is that accurate?
We purchased 9 last year, and so the 6 that we'll add will make it 15.
And I appreciate that approach. So we didn't just radically go out and say, okay, we're converting every single bus to propane. It's a measured approach. We're looking at the finances and the performance. I think it's a great way to do it. So thank you for continuing to move this forward.
Thank you.
Any other comments? All those in favor of adopting item 12.3 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion is adopted. Item 13, other business. 13.1, approval of grant application, alternatives to exclusionary discipline, piloting restorative justice practices at Jason Lee to College Park, Washington's Community Grants Program.
The Assistant Superintendent of K-12 Support recommends that the Board of Directors approve the request for funding from College Spark, Washington for the proposed project, Alternatives to Exclusionary Discipline, Piloting Restorative Justice Practices at Jason Lee, in the amount of $141,000, and if funded, approve expenditures of funds according to accepted guidelines. Funding source, College Spark, Washington.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Any discussions or questions or comments? Yep, Director Hines.
I am super excited that we're pursuing this. It's such a responsible way to help teach young people, and especially at the middle school level.
Right.
So punitive often doesn't make sense to the perpetrator or the victim, and that ability to come face to face and sit down and own what you own, I think is the real world way that we need to be addressing these sorts of issues. And I see Principal Brandt sitting out in the audience on a Thursday night, so thank you for taking the initiative to put this in place at Jason Lee, and I hope we're successful with the application.
Thank you.
Just one comment. I know Truman has been using this for a while and have seen some good results, so it's great to see it moving forward. Same thing First Creek, and so hopefully we'll, see it move. And I think one of the things yesterday, Director Hines and I were at the YWCA's luncheon, and one of the things they were talking about, they had a teaching not only kids but adults about what we're doing with the whole child, teaching social and emotional growth, teaching how to deal with things. And Council Member Talbert was sitting next to me, and I said, maybe 20 years from now we'll see less violence in our community as we all move forward. And this is just, a part of that. And I think, everybody who's in this, Christy and all of the other principals, thank you. And we look forward to seeing the you know, how well it works and how we can continue to support it.
Any other comments or questions? I just have one question. It's a 3-year time frame, and it takes you through design and implementation. Have there been discussions at this point about evaluation kind of down the road and how things are going? Is that part of the grant opportunity?
As long as Christy's here, let's get her up here and have her talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, so College Sparks will have a whole evaluation process. The first year is really getting professional development for our school and then starting to build the system. We're going to work pretty quickly to, one of our first big things is ISS, using that more as a place for kids to have that quick reset and give them some therapy options to get themselves calm, and then have a conversation with an adult, maybe a teacher if needed, and getting them back. So giving them those opportunities to have those moments where they have to step out, but the whole process will be evaluated. We want parents' feedback, you know, as soon as we get rolling and kind of get the understanding of the grant, then one of our first conversations is going to be with families as well. So that's kind of our deal. And then again, spreading it to everyone. So not just middle school, but high school, and just things that we find, and go from there.
Thank you.
Yep.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of adopting item 13.1 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion is adopted. Okay, item 14, reports to the board. 14.1, benchmark report on safety.
So as the staff is transitioning over, you see that there are 4 reports to you tonight, and President Ushka worked with us. You are going to see us be concise tonight. You'll see a lot of information in the appendix. You will see that we will not talk to every slide necessarily in our presentations. It's important that that information is included in the presentation to add additional context. And just reminding you that these are oftentimes quick updates and monitoring reports and not final year-end analysis. So with that, Assistant Superintendent Verharen Pace, would you take us through the safety report?
Good evening, Vice President Cobb, members of the board. Tonight, Assistant Superintendent Pace and I are here to report on Goal 4 of our strategic plan. Tonight, we'll be providing you a monitoring report, as Deputy Superintendent said, on 2 priority benchmarks for goal number 4. The first is the percentage of 3rd through 5th grade students with no exclusionary discipline, suspensions, or expulsions, and the percentage of 3rd through 12th grade students who have completed the climate survey.
So the first data slide we have here is, again, we want to emphasize this is without suspensions and expulsions, and it's the elementary grades 3 and grade 5. This is a 3-year trend data starting 2015, 16, and 17. It was pulled on 4/17/17. It's probably looking a little different today, but that's what this data represents. You can see that the data for both 3rd and 5th grade has improved over the last 3 years. And disciplinary issues leading to suspensions or expulsions have also decreased. The next slide is a breakdown by our racial subgroups in grades 3 and 5 from 2016 and 2017. Again, this data was pulled on 4/17. You can see a significant ethnicity gap decrease in 3rd and 5th grade from 2016 school year to 2017. And for some of the subgroups, we have reached or surpassed the district goal that was set. The one group that did not show a decrease is the Native American. We know that's a small n, but we are looking deeper into that to see what that caused, why that's the only one that's showing a little decrease.
So as Assistant Superintendent Pace said, all subgroups, including those listed here, have met or surpassed the district goal. We are making progress towards the district's goal. However, as I'm sure you would all concur, it's important for us to mention for the public who may be viewing from home tonight and in the audience that we will not be satisfied until we reach 100% and close the gap completely. As we implement initiatives and changes in our practices, we realize that data may increase sometimes before it decreases. We are teaching not only students, but also adults in ways to collaborate or calibrate expectations and behaviors. We are becoming more consistent across the district in defining disciplinary actions for specific issues and/or infractions. We realized when we set our goal that it would take time to see significant changes, and we're beginning to see the positive results in the data that we've presented to you tonight. Some of our next steps: during our data days, schools review discipline data, and they determine next steps just like they do for student achievement. They determine next steps for discipline and reducing the disparity amongst the discipline as they analyze their data. We will continue to provide professional learning around restorative justice, including an upcoming forum that will take place in the district on June 1st on restorative justice as part of the Tacoma Whole Child Initiative. We continue to look for meaningful and authentic ways to embed and integrate social emotional learning into the classroom every day.
Second priority benchmark that we're going to look at tonight is the climate survey, and it's an update in the percentage of 3rd through 12th grade students completing that climate survey. The percentage each year reflects the total enrollment of grades 3 through 12, 12th grade students, which fluctuates from year to year based on enrollment. So for instance, in 2016, there's 9,440 students who took the survey. That's 41% of the total amount of students in the district at the time. So that's why when you look at it, it changes from year
and
to
it's
year.
eligible students to participate in the survey.
Right,
correct?
eligible, and also students from grades 3 through 12.
Thank you.
So not all of the students. So thank you for that clarification. And also just wanted to remind you that this is our new climate survey, which was developed in collaboration. This year, the students took a new climate survey, which was developed in collaboration with the Center for Educational Effectiveness. So that takes us to our appendix.
Yes, we wanted to point out that we also included in the appendix for you the data or the percentage or the numbers of both parents and staff who completed the survey as well. In addition, in your appendix tonight, there's more specific data around the benchmark that we shared earlier that you can review.
The focus of tonight was to just focus on the priority benchmarks, and those are the two that we have for you this evening. So we're
Thank
open
you.
for questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Director Hines?
I'll just comment that we're trending in the right direction, so I
Yes.
appreciate the good work, especially at the 3rd and 5th grade level, because kids can be put on a path.
Yes.
You get suspended and you get a reputation, and you have an expectation of yourself, and students and other classmates have a perception of you, then that can live with you throughout your K through 12 experience. So I think it's encouraging that we're seeing those decreasing. I wonder also if our emphasis on cultural competency is starting to help. I don't see that reflected in our next steps or any of the data that I looked at, but certainly helping people be more respectful and cognizant of one another would be impactful. And then just lastly, a question on the Restorative Justice Forum. Does that coincide with the Superintendent Parent Breakfast, or is that different?
The Restorative Justice
There's
Forum?
a Restorative Justice Forum set for Thursday, June 1st at the PDC.
I don't know.
I
don't think
talked to Amanda, she said 30th was the parent advisory.
Okay, so it's
Yeah,
different.
so
I think it's something separate.
It's different.
Okay.
thought it was in my calendar.
So is this, because it's at the PDC, I'm assuming it's more geared towards our, like a professional development? Is it geared towards staff and
Yes.
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 do we have plans to do
We could put something in the
Yeah.
Friday report for you around that.
And I'd
We'll
be
get more
interested if
data.
we have plans to do something with the community on it. So we've got internal communication, but also external communication to help people understand what's going on with restorative justice.
Not yet, and the reason why is we try to build our capacity internally first, so that we can talk about it, make meaning, and then we would work our way out
Okay.
in there.
So I think it would be helpful to hear from the public their perspective and suggestions, and we certainly have people in the community that have experience with restorative justice and could help us validate and
And we have-
explain.
As some of the examples, we have numerous schools that are participating in different levels, in
Yeah.
different ways, and there's been community voice and action in there. The next steps list is not an exhaustive list, just for those that are watching at home as well. And so we just tried to talk to you about some of the things that are currently happening and that are on the front burner.
Okay, and I appreciate that. I'm always mindful of people that don't have kids in the system, and people with kids in the school system represent such a small percentage of our community that are we actively telling people what's going on that's having a positive impact for kids and families. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? I don't have any. Thank you for your
All right. Thank you very much.
As we're transitioning to the next one, I just want to remind families as well as staff, this is the springtime. It's full of angst and excitement, and it's time for all of us to be patient. And for those that are at home raising kids, if there's information that's happening outside that would help us understand what a child may be going through, please reach out to your school staff, your classroom teacher, your counselor, your principal to reach there.
Item 14.2, construction update.
Vice President Cobb, Board of Directors, Superintendent Santorno. In light of the Building for Achievement, our focus tonight is on partnerships. And I invite Director of Planning and Construction, Rob Swansky, to give us a little briefing on what we've been doing with partnerships in the district.
Thank you, Mr. Story. Good evening. Is this on?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. So as many of you know, we have a number of different, I need a clicker.
Okay.
Right here, thank you. A number of different partnerships, and I saw this cartoon, I had to put it there, "You're nothing without me and you know it." I thought that was pretty good. And this quote was good. "Perfect partners don't exist. Perfect conditions exist for a limited time in which partnerships express themselves best." And I looked at that and said, perfect conditions, and thought of the weather and our construction projects, and we haven't had even perfect conditions for quite some time, and yet the partnerships continue to thrive in Tacoma schools. And so just a couple of quick reminders. I'm certain you don't need a reminder about the interlocal agreement that we have for joint use and development of facilities with Metro Parks, but that partnership continues, and we look forward to the joint board meetings where we get to report to you the equity that's going on and many of the other things. None the least of which is our Environmental Learning Center, SAMI. And right now we have a draft operation and joint use agreement, and so we're working through that, and we'll bring that to you soon for your approval. Essentially the way those look is that we will operate the building at Point Defiance, and Metro Parks will operate the building and maintain the building at First Creek, the Eastside Community Center. So we'll bring you more details on that soon. And then I wanted to also bring to your attention something unique and helpful that's happened for us with the City of Tacoma. We have streets that are in disrepair all over the place, and Proposition 3 funds have been talked about in relation to our school projects from the bond. And the city has agreed to continue to help us with those Proposition 3 funds. And so most recently at Stewart Middle School, we had terrible disrepair on 50th, 52nd, and D Street surrounding the schools. And even with the rains, they are almost complete doing all of those streets. And what that meant for us is a spend of about $70,000, but the city spent somewhere between $250,000. I know it's over $250,000 from Proposition 3 funds for just one of the streets, so it was a huge spend. So what it did was enhance what we're required to do for our off-site improvements. And so we do all of the curbing and guttering and usually saw the street halfway and do it, but they did the whole street, repaired utilities, so now we have a great partnership there with the city, and they're willing to continue to help us in that manner. So that's exciting and a great partnership. Wanted you to know, too, that we have a school district from Colorado, Cherry Creek School District, coming next week. Their superintendent, deputy superintendent, some of the principals and other executives coming to see several of our schools with the DLR group. And so we're excited to be touring them through and talking with them about their visioning and how we might learn from each other and help in their process. So another partnership that takes us out of our state, which we're excited about. And then lastly, coming up, we are actually hosting the A4LE, that's the Association for Learning Environments, chapter conference in Tacoma. It's at the Hotel Murano, but we're actually having breakout sessions at Wainwright and tours through McCarver and Wilson. and even a hard hat tour at the SAMI Environmental Learning Center site. So that's exciting to be sharing with colleagues, architects, designers, educators, consultants from around the state. So that's coming up the week of May 9th, or 8th through the 10th. So another great partnership. And that's all we have for you tonight. Are there any questions?
Director Winsko?
I just have a question about the Streets by Stewart.
Yes.
I know that when we construct schools, sometimes we have to do some of the infrastructure. I figured it was probably already there, but does our construction kind of damage some of the streets, and is that the reason why we have to put some money in?
So any project that we have, we're always required by the city to do off-site improvements. So it's curbing and guttering and sidewalks, and usually half of the streets, sometimes utilities. And it usually comes down to a walkthrough around the site initially, and then negotiating with the city what are the absolutes that we have to do. In fact, even the city has sometimes deferred some of the off-site improvements that we've had to do, and usually what they've said is within a 10-year period, if we'll get those done later on, they'll defer some of those because they can be very costly. Wilson High School is a great example. Before, in one of the other phases, they deferred some of the off-site improvements, and now we've finished those off-site improvements in this other phase of the project.
Okay, thank you.
Director Vial?
Just a question, could the board get a tour of SAMI pretty soon?
Absolutely. When would you like to go?
And maybe Arlington too?
Yes, Arlington is.
Are they
getting there.
tourable? Are they ready to be toured?
Oh, yeah.
They are hard hat tours, but
Okay.
they're safe.
Well, if they're taking some of our out-of-town guests, they better be ready.
I
We'd
thought
be
maybe they're
happy
gonna
to do
circle
that.
around.
You bet.
Okay.
We'll try to
Anyway,
arrange that.
It'd be fun, because I know we've got the pictures now,
Yeah.
what really can see what they're beginning to
It's
look
exciting.
like. So
It's-
whenever it's appropriate,
Okay.
I would appreciate if we could have a tour.
We'll do
Thanks.
that, you bet.
Any other comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 14.3, Urban Collaborative Biannual Report.
Welcome your help. Thank you, Rosalind. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Good evening. You'll recognize the same format we've been using for a couple of years now, so it will be familiar to you, and so we'll just start rolling right through. Our first slide for you is the timeline at a glance. Thank you. You did take it. Is the timeline at a glance. So this is just a quick little snippet of the full timeline. The full timeline tomorrow will be posted on our webpage for our staff and our community to view and to see the full action for all of our recommendations aligned to the benchmarks. The first action tonight we want to highlight is around the area of professional development. The intervention framework is a topic that we have come to the board a couple of times and shared in reports as well as in a Friday report. The team is in their final stages of the development of the intervention framework, and they have been designing the professional development to roll out this June. Our cabinet had training with the team on the intervention framework in April. It's almost May. Oops. Wow. In April. And so we'll be rolling that out to our staff in June. Our paraeducator training, we're excited that we've had a team developing some online modules specifically to target our paraeducators around the topics of autism, of behavior support, and inclusive practices and the law. So we're excited to have this online option for staff to be able to access at a time that's convenient for them. Our PLNs, our professional learning networks, that is what our intervention, or not our intervention, it is an intervention also. Professional development, our instructional facilitators provide each month available to all of our teachers. And we have 5 different professional learning networks at the elementary and at the secondary level. And the topics there include, again, support in the area of autism, inclusive practices, and instructional best practices. And then that concludes our highlights tonight on our professional development. And I'll take us to our inclusive education. So we've got an array here of things. Unified sports, you've heard a bit about unified sports before, okay? So I don't need to go deeper on that one for you as well, other than to share with you, if you have not heard or didn't see our Facebook post from PIO yesterday, Unified Sports has expanded to the elementary level, and we're really excited about that. It started on April 15th for soccer with our kids. So we'll be excited to watch that grow and expand for all of our children.
Who are the peer coaches? Are they high school kids or middle
They
school?
are same age students.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Yeah, very exciting. Since our last report in October, we've increased our number of students participating in co-teaching classes. At First Creek, we have 3 more classes. At Foss, we have another, and at 2 more at Wilson. I'll be sharing a little more data as we continue this evening on our student participation. Regarding our stadium developmental program, we've been working closely with Steve's team over the years on designing a suite for our students with our most severe disabilities at Stadium. So those plans are complete, the bids have been solicited, and we are approaching a day when all of the students will be able to attend their home schools. We're very excited about the design and the plan at Stadium to really better meet the needs of our students. The Inclusion Works, that's a partnership with our Public Information Office as well. And with that, what we're doing is we're working to meet on a regular basis to really promote our stories for our students on what's working, how inclusion is benefiting. So working on those monthly reports out that we can be sharing in various different ways. So great partnerships across all of the departments here. And our last action tonight that we're going to highlight is around data reporting. Yet another partnership working with our technology team. So we continue to collaborate, and we've really developed a lot of great new reports to help us in Power BI. Specifically tonight here, I just show a little snippet around co-teaching. But we've also been developing reports to help us with, we have some unique staffing, things that come right out of our IEPs that we can feed right into a Power BI report that can help us make some solid decisions to help promote our students' success. So this snippet here that you see tonight on the co-teaching is one of those examples, and we're specifically tracking now the types and the number of co-taught classrooms by school. Our next data piece here, this is a slide that we've shared before, and I just wanted to be able to give you an update. So our department goal that we have set is for 65% of students with disabilities to be spending 80 to 100% of their day in the general education class. We previously reported in the fall, in October, we were at 54.9%, and today we're at 56%. We're quite proud of this for our students, and you could reference back in the appendix as needed where we've come with that. We've been proud of the incremental. It's important to not do huge leaps, but the incremental progress. So we will continue up to update this one regularly. Our next data slide, we shared this one for the first time in October, and again, that was with the work with Power BI to start to pull this information. This report here shows the co-taught classes where we're focused on our school goal and the class goal. We've been working to promote this at the secondary level, and while we've been really excited about the progress that we're making through our intentional planning and our professional development for our teachers and our administrators, we decided we were ready to dig deeper. So that takes us to our next slide. Really looking at our co-taught classrooms. So this slide displays the increase in the number of students accessing their instruction in the general education classes via co-taught model. As you can see here, in 2015, we had 230 students participating. In 2016, we moved up to 600 students. And in 2017, we have 853 students participating in a co-taught class. I want to remind that co-teaching, some of our schools were doing this before we came along with the Urban Collaborative Report, and some of it has been very organic that we've been able to help build off of. Now students have a place in the general education class, and so now we're really looking at their effectiveness. We know that it's not enough just to be there. It's important that we're meeting students' needs at their highest level. We're analyzing the grades for our students, and we're using a walkthrough protocol to monitor the effectiveness and to guide feedback, as well as our professional development. Our last data slide this evening displays the increase of students with disabilities participating in rigorous courses. You can see here the increase from 2014 with 5.2% of students with disabilities at the 11th and 12th grade participating in rigorous courses to our present rate at 24.4. You may recall the video with Zach Jenkins from Lincoln High School 2 years ago when he shared his thoughts and emotions on being included. Specifically, he was being included in an AP class via a co-taught model. The video personally, as I can tell with you, Director Viel as well, I tear up every time, and it reminds me why we're doing what we're doing for kids. It takes us to our key findings this evening. TPS continues to improve the access for students with disabilities participating in general education classes at the highest level on record for the district. Co-teaching is improving opportunities for more students to access rigorous curriculum, and TPS juniors and seniors with disabilities are accessing AP, IB, and college in the high school and Running Start at record levels. So never resting, we strive forward to continue to do more for our students, and so I've highlighted here a few next steps. We will continue our professional learning networks on an ongoing basis. We keep those rolling through the rest of the school year and pick those right back up again in the fall. We continue to do our monthly analysis of our data and sharing those with building teams for the buildings and our department action steps to be doing collectively and independently. And we're planning our summer professional development for our staff as well. And lastly, I want to, with excitement, publicly share that Tacoma has been selected to co-host the Urban Collaborative Fall Conference with Seattle. Yes, very happy about that, Superintendent Sarantano. Again, thank you for encouraging our participation with the Urban Collaborative. It's an honor to be selected. They planted the seed several months ago that they were looking at us, and the dates will be November 1st through 3rd at the Fairmont Olympic Hotel in downtown Seattle. We started participating in some conference calls, and in a week and a half, a team and I will be traveling to Denver to attend the spring conference. At the close of that conference, we do a session using a World Cafe model where we seek input from all the participants to help guide the next conference, and so that will be very exciting. We've set our topic, and we're excited to hear back from our colleagues on what will best meet their needs and an opportunity to showcase our district as well. So this concludes tonight's report. We'll return again in the fall. We'll work with Superintendent Santorno on the specific date, and we will get our reports posted online tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any questions?
Go ahead.
Director Wensko.
Okay, I heard an interesting story about about 60 years ago at Stadium. Somebody broke their leg or had a serious accident and couldn't walk, and of course there was no elevator, so his friends carried him up and down the stairs all around the school for a couple months. Well, now we have an elevator. So when we're placing this class there, is it kind of by the elevators? Because that school is so huge. I'm just trying to think. We would really need that elevator if we're going to have a class there of students in need of that. So how are we? What are we doing at Stadium?
Yeah.
So we won't need the elevator. We're going to be bringing them in on the back side of the building, and so there'll be a direct entrance into the school.
Okay, down by where the library is.
Correct.
The building team has really partnered well with your team, Steve, to really be thoughtful on the facility usage for students and how to support.
Yeah. Okay. And you talked about 54%. Wanting to get up to, the percentage up of inclusion in the classroom. A few times I have observed some students in the classroom that just were having a heck of a time, and the teacher really, and I'm not blaming any teacher, they just have so much to do that sometimes it's very difficult for them to do what's needed for those students. So do we listen to teachers saying maybe it's not an appropriate placement for this child?
The classroom teacher is not only a critical but required by law member of the IEP team that participates in the decision making for the students' schedule of their day.
And then
we do make sure to go student by student. While this is a goal for us, you heard us say 65%, it would not be for every student. It's important to go student by student and make adjustments as needed.
Okay. So I do hear, about the TLC program, some of the students, and I do feel that is self-contained for some of those students is appropriate, because they're disruptive to the class, to the teacher, and actually they don't benefit themselves either if they're put into the population. And so I continue to hear some issues around there, and then a few paraeducators have told me that some of those students are doing online work, and they really need more teacher-directed. So are we looking at some of those issues with the TLC classes?
Absolutely. Our TLCs, our students present very challenging behaviors, and so it can be an intense population, so we work closely on each student where they're at and help to take them to the next level. And so sometimes it can be just coming back and just reworking it, reworking it, and looking at our data and what's working for each student.
Okay, thank you. That's it for me.
Director Vial?
Thank you.
Or-
First of all, amazing progress from when we started this journey. And we were all kind of nervous about that when we did. But as we look now, obviously it was the right thing to do, and all you have to do is watch Zach's video, and I tear up every time I think about that. Only comment I have is when we use percentages of total students, could you give us the number of what that's a percentage of, hon? And then on there, I didn't see it, but maybe it's there.
Can you,
Well, the one where you had percentage of students, oh shucks, get back here.
Like when we're referencing the 54% of students
Well,
with
that one, and
disabilities?
also students taking one or more courses of rigor, you have 24% of.
So the 24, I could absolutely find that. I don't know that number offhand. That was our number of 11th and 12th grade students with
Okay,
disabilities.
I guess I'm trying to get an idea of how many kids, you know what I'm going
Yes,
after.
I
Like
do.
the curriculum or teaching and learning has done that with us on their stuff. And so it just gives us a base to know how many kids are actually 24, you see where I'm coming from?
Yes.
24% of how many?
Yes, I'm happy to either
Okay,
follow up in a
great.
Friday report or make
I know
sure and
that's
build
kind
that
of
into.
maybe a ticky thing, but I think it gives us a little better picture of where we're going and, where we're at. So
Happy
other
to
than
do
that, I think, the progress, and I've heard from some parents whose kids are actually enrolled who think it's just been the student voice that we've heard at Mount Tahoma, that their child really feels like they are, as they put it many times, as Zach did, a normal kid. And I think that has been, if we look at our social and emotional things and what we want, I think that in itself is significant by the fact that we have gone to this inclusion program. It may not necessarily raise academics, and obviously it has so far, but for me, that is a very, very significant thing, that a child now feels like they really belong in school and that they belong as a person. And to me, that's extremely significant, and I congratulate you on that. Thank you.
Thank you, and I thank you for your support.
I just have one question about slide 8. And I'm just curious about, and not any specific numbers, I don't expect you to have it, what share of this is new students coming into the district versus a change in the student's environment? On slide 8, where it goes into data implementation of inclusive practices, and it's the look at the change in the number of students. What share, is it a small, I assume it's small, the number of those, the growth in students from 16 to 17, it's new students coming into the schools, to our system, versus the change in students' environment?
I don't have that broken down in that way. That's something I could explore. We would attribute, without the data to support that, but we would attribute to our efforts around our professional development with our staff and the intentional planning that each of our buildings have been doing. And again, they're sitting down and they're looking at all of their students and what makes the most sense student by student.
Okay.
I just want to compliment the team because I'd put our special ed team using data to drive decisions against anyone in the nation. They truly are digging in. Sometimes these are very emotional conversations. I was in a conversation, I hadn't shared this with Jennifer the other day, with some of our administrators talking about students that were struggling and with violent behaviors, and how more students in the inclusive practices now that we're seeing an increase of that. And I was able to email our data team, and we quickly were able to talk about that being a perception, and the data does not support that. That we've seen a dramatic decrease. And that's not to say that one thing is the be-all, end-all. And Director Winskill is, I think, is very wise in reminding us that nothing is a one-size-fits-all approach, and that we have to look at it from student-by-student perspective. But the team does that. We may not be able to slice the data in every different filter on the spot, but based on the requirements that the board has asked us to do, not only in these elements, but all the individual benchmarks. And then they go out and work with individual principals to talk about their plans and support. And so they're really doing a good job. I'd say better than a good job, and truly changing lives. And it is resulting in increased graduation requirements, increased graduation rates.
Don't need any more.
I'll leave it at that, but just kudos to them. And I think it's a true testament when folks come and say, hey, we want to have you host a national conference. And to me, what's really important about that is that's a great recruitment effort. That's a great way to start to go out and grab some of the best and the finest. And we need the best and the finest to work with our students in every classroom. So.
I think it's also important that the public knows that Jennifer and her team have kind of built this cohort group, whereas when we started, we were the only district in the Urban Collaborative. And I don't know how many now that Jennifer's been out recruiting and meeting on a regular basis with special student service directors across the state, where they're coming together and starting to look at some of these practices, and they're noticing our data. So here's a true case where she's not only had an effect, or their team has not only had an effect on Tacoma, but are starting to have a statewide influence, which is probably how we started to get the conference too. So thank you, Jennifer, for that work.
Yes, there are 11 districts in the state, and we meet on a quarterly basis, and we do a consultancy model together around our problems of practice, and we learn from each other each quarter.
That's great.
So, thank you.
Yep. Thank you for all the work.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 14.4, budget update.
I was teasing Rosalind. I said, this update should say, we don't know anything. And so you're going to see a lot of slides.
That would be correct.
Yes, and it's not because our staff isn't prepared, but you're going to see a lot of slides and background on enrollment and things, but there's a lot of unknowns out there. And so Sergeant Schultz, I know nothing, continues to ring through my head. And we're asking that not only the staff, but the public, as well as you, be patient with us as we continue to get new information on a daily basis. But nothing is finalized.
I feel like my colleagues really blew up the balloon, and I'm here to pop it. Well, thank you very much for allowing me the few minutes to give you a brief update. As Dr. Garcia said, there's really very little to report out on. I have a few local impact comments that I can make, and I can give you a timeline on where we're at, and I can provide you with some brief commentary from my own personal understanding of where we're at. Looking at our enrollment for next year, we work with our demographer, Les Kendrick, and he's been our demographer for the last, I don't know, at least 10 years. When we look back at his approval or his great percentages over the last 10 years, he projects us at 99.5%. So we come in within 99.5% of his projections over the last 10 years, which is pretty remarkable when you look at us from a 10-year period. When we talk about the elementary group, we're going to lose about 190 students at the elementary grades. For middle schools, it's 140 students that will gain. And then for high schools, we'll lose 15 students. So district-wide, and these graphs are really zoomed in. So, the scale is rather off. If you looked at the scale on a true basis, it wouldn't look quite so significant. District-wide, we're losing 67 students. So it's relatively the same. We've talked for years about the bathtub, the bottom of the bathtub, and that we would be gaining students. At some point, we continue not to gain those students. We're just sitting at the bottom of the bathtub, waiting for a number of students to move in. But the good news is that we're not losing students, so we at least have that going for us. So, sorry, I was one slide off on that one. I'm going to skip past the legislative highlights. I'm going to consider this appendix information. I don't think that there's really a whole lot of rationale of going through the individual components of the budgets, but the information is there if you want to review it. Same with the House proposal. And I will give you some brief highlights on this page. which is really our district impacts based on what both the House and Senate proposals look like. And I would caution us, in any other year, I would say that this is really great news, and that based on the House and Senate proposals, this gives us some indication of where they're at and what the conference budget might look like. But the basis that they built these numbers off of are so vastly different. There's a per pupil funding model, essentially throwing out our current funding model and redesigning the entire funding model in one proposal, and in the other proposal, there's an outrageous tax package that has really very little steam, is what we're hearing in Olympia. And so based on that, it almost seems irrelevant to talk about it.
I would agree.
Right, and so when I look at what we have for the House and the Senate, there are some good impacts here. If they were to pass one of these, we may be in some pretty good positions. I think that the risk and the fear that sits with us is if they take the worst of one package and the worst of another package and cobble it together, we could be in really horrible shape. So we're not putting a whole lot of weight on where this is at, and we're watching very closely what's happening. We're working very closely with our legislative advisors and trying to understand where we can advocate and what the implications might look like based on that. I'll talk really quickly about this. There's a coalition of Washington Education Associations that came together. These are finance-related people, WASDA, WASA, WASBO, all got together and came up with some common themes around the legislative session that they want to present to legislators as these are our objectives. Primarily, I think that it focuses around some very specific things: how the levy gets impacted, what the salaries look like, and enhancing our funding. So this is out there. It's being touted with the legislatures as these are our objectives. Every couple of weeks, they're bringing a few more back to the legislators to try and introduce that to them. And so we're actively seeking information and input from our legislators about where they're at with these types of activities and where we can help out with information. To skip really quickly to our budgeting process, so we've revised our budgeting process maybe 6 years ago now, 5-6 years ago, and we've been going through a budgeting by priorities process that requires us to seek information from the individual budget writers about what they're actually going to be doing with the money, having an alignment with our strategic plan, and then submitting proposals to us that are then evaluated, ranked, and then we go through what's considered a buying process. Because we don't know what's happening with the legislature, we've completed all of the process up through the buying. And so we're sort of in a holding pattern. We have identified a few programs that we are going to move forward with just because we need to move forward with a few things, or we're not going to be able to get them implemented in time for the budget implementation. But for the most part, the large part, we're holding on those activities. And we'll have a further information as we know more from the legislature. Bringing that then to the timeline, in June, we'll come back with hopefully a better budget presentation that gives you more indication of where we're at. I'm not even sure that that's going to be good timing. And I say that because what we're hearing from the legislature is that we're waiting for the revenue forecast on June 15th before they even start the negotiations. And we put it on here as a placeholder. We'll put it on. If we have the opportunity to bring something to you, then great, we'll be happy to do that. If not, we're going to push it off to July, where we've put it on the July 13th agenda as an optional public hearing / adoption / budget presentation. So it's kind of a crapshoot at this point, but we're happy to put it on there and prepare ourselves for what could come. And then our last day to actually submit the budget will be August 31st. But in order to prepare for that, we would need to have adoption on August 24th from the board, unless we had a special session. So that's sort of where we're headed in the next several weeks, months, and I wish I had more to report.
So you'll see us all here on July 13th, and hopefully we'll be able to make some decisions, but more likely you may see us in August. And that's really stressful, I think, not only for staff, but for community, where, not being able to plan for programming. I think we're in a very fortunate spot that we're able to maintain right now because of your leadership, because of Rosa and her team's financial planning over the last couple of years. But we're in a very vulnerable spot. And then we're already seeing community impacts on the federal level. And, as a district that serves a traditionally large, vulnerable population, that has huge implications for things like January when the federal budget may have impact. So lots of heavy lifting by the budgeting team, cabinet, and staff. Nice job, you said
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Any comments or questions?
Well, just a comment, having lived through this once before, when I was with Governor Evans during Boeing, and we tried to actually head off the school funding that we're still dealing with now. And I wasn't kidding when I said it felt like Groundhog Day. Every time, the same issues. Legislature actually was there for 275 days and did not adopt a real budget until September 13th. So this feels like that again, with as far apart as I know they are. I guess I was going to do this under comments, but the House and Senate budget writers, the education people, are supposedly meeting every day, but there does not seem to be much movement. I don't think personally, having done that for 5 years, there's going to be any movement till after the revenue forecast comes out. And I don't think it's going to be enough to do what they need to do, obviously, but we'll find out. I think one of the things that bothers me is a lot of these tax proposals are predicated on vote of the people. And we've not had a real good track record on that in this state in the last few years. So it could very well be the legislature will be back in session on November 8th trying to figure out what to do. So I don't, think this will be over in August because they do not have enough revenue to do what they want to do without some kind of tax increase. Now, whether they have the courage to do it themselves or whether it goes, if they do, then we're probably all right. If they don't, and it goes to the people, then I think, again, as Rosalind said, it's rolling the dice. So I think we're in this for a while, and I don't think it's, and it is stressful. I know I have been in that staff level at the state wondering, and not just dealing with education, but we had social and health services and, $3 billion or $5 billion at that time we were worried about. So we're not alone. We just happen to be on center stage right now in terms of what's going to happen. And Rosin, I know that this is difficult to do, but I agree with your approach. We just placehold until we find out, and we don't. And the fact that we've not, as a board, that we've not shoved in for pushing for any new programs and spent any of that reserve, which looks big, but it won't be big if we don't get what, stay where we are. So anyway, I commend you on what you're doing, and I know it's not easy because I've been there, and it's just a waiting game, and unfortunately, I think the scary part of it is it's totally out of our control. Yeah. And that is to me. So anyway, hang in there, and we're there to support whatever we can for you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, wait, Director Winslow, do you have any comments?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
It was like a
I mean, I at least set you up for it, right? Thank you very much.
Item 15, board comments and reports.
I have a couple.
Director Gill?
This last weekend, Director Winskill was there, and Chelsea was one of the finalists. We went to the Propeller Club for the awarding of the Phil Lilly scholarships, and our district did amazingly well. Rebecca Kyer from Lincoln was the first place winner of a $4,000 scholarship, and our third place winner was Miss Ashpole from Sammy, and she won $1,500. So they gave 3 scholarships, and 2 of the 3 went to Tacoma Public Schools kids. So
great.
Congratulations to our scholarship winners and to our finalists. And Chelsea went there from Stadium. The other thing was attended Palmer Scholars Luncheon the other day, and I'm going to take a little personal privilege. Almost half of those kids that are Palmer Scholars were kids that I taught, and it was very emotional for me because those that were speaking, Abrana, Jade, as you know from Stadium, who was one of my students, Jade and Shayla and Damien were all kids that I taught from when they were five years old till they left. And I'm proud of them because they're all East Side kids, and they all had some pretty significant challenges through their lives. And for them to be there now is amazing. And I was just so proud of all of them, proud of us at TPS, because it's been our work, as they will tell you, the help that they got through our partnership programs, our vision, our help in pushing them forward, that they're going to walk across that stage not only with diplomas, but they're going to be going to some pretty prestigious colleges. And anyway, that's my report. That's the good part. The other thing is the governor vetoed part of the school citing bill yesterday, and came as kind of a surprise, frankly. And what it did was basically he wants the legislature to go back and ensure that growth management practices will be followed. Well, from an editorial standpoint, that's in the county's bailiwick, not ours. And I feel bad because it's going to significantly impact two of our adjacent school districts, those being Peninsula and Franklin Pierce, who have waited a long time to build new schools and now are going to have a difficult time doing so. I'm hoping that the legislature will come back and make those adjustments to what the governor has asked for. I think it was kind of surprising because this had been one of the few times where all four caucuses had worked together to get this bill through, and they thought it was going to be signed. So we'll see. It does not affect us. We're all right with Lincoln Tree Farm. Bethel is all right, but I am really saddened by the fact that our colleagues at Franklin Pierce and Peninsula, who badly need new schools, are not going to be able to do that unless the legislature acts. So I know that Superintendent Santorno wrote a letter in support. I actually had the opportunity to speak at length with the governor's chief of staff. So we'll continue on and show support for getting this fixed. It hurts kids, bottom line. So thank you. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Dr. Winslow, do you have?
I don't have anything right now.
Okay, and I don't have a report tonight either.
Right.
Student board member Olson?
Oh, no comment.
You sure? No more excitement from you?
We've talked so much.
You get her home.
Yeah, she's got to go home and get studying.
The announcement of future board meetings will meet on Thursday, May 11th for a regular business meeting at 6 o'clock. Thursday, May 18th, 6 p.m. for a study session. Do we know the topic?
I think there's something.
I don't know what's on it, to be honest with
It'll be
you.
posted.
Indian
on my
education. Is that
calendar.
Indian education that night?
The
Or is that the
graduation.
16th? That's the 16th. No, the Indian education. Maybe that's the 16th. It seems like there's something on the 18th.
Well, it'll be posted soon.
We'll find out.
Yeah, we'll find out.
And then Thursday, May 25th at 4:30 p.m., a joint meeting with Metro
All I
Parks.
have is school board.
And at 6 p.m. on the same evening as our regular business meeting. And so moving on to item 17, executive session, there is none. So unless
go
there are
home.
further comments or questions, we are adjourned.
Good job, Madam President.
Yeah, nice job.